Hello and welcome to my podcast, Laughter Lab. So great to have you here, Andrea. So I know about you, I know about the cool things you do, but we have millions, probably a couple of millions of people out there that are following our podcast. So they want to know about you. So can you tell them what are the things that you do?
Certainly. Well, I do lots of things. Um, I'm a mother. I'll start with that. I have a 20-year-old kid up in Seattle.
Oh.
I do lots of things socially here in Portland. And then, as far as my career goes, I've been in the outdoor apparel industry for about 25 years, working for brands like DC Shoes, Nike, and Columbia, specifically working on size inclusion. So, giving people of larger bodies access to gear so they can go outside and play. I actually left Columbia 2 years ago to launch my own consultancy, which is called Make Plus Equal, with the intention of helping more brands build more product for more people to get outside. So that's what I do. So I've worked in corporate environments for a very long time, and now I'm working in this room all by myself with a talkative cat.
By the way, beautiful room. Yeah, beautiful colors. I love that. I love the
Thank
contrast of
you.
your dress and your background.
Thanks.
It's very interesting to me because I want to talk about a little bit about corporate, and the corporate world. But before we dive into that, I want to ask you, when you were growing up, because in this podcast we talk about humor, laughter, life, workplace. So when you were growing up, was there somebody in your life that you remember as being, the funny person?
I wouldn't say they were the funny person, but my father is the typical dad joke guy. I think he was telling dad jokes before we had the term dad joke. He's in his early 80s now, and I mean, he's still a very stoic fellow, very smart, kind of engineering brain, but clever with goofy little dad jokes, and I'm sure that's where it came from. I know his side of the family was very stoic. They immigrated from Poland and were very serious about getting things done and making their way. But it's interesting because my friends, and we'll talk more about this, but my friends have actually put me on a bit of a restrainer where I'm only allowed to say 3 puns a day. And then they met my father because they get sick of them. But then they met my dad and they all went, "Oh, we get it now." So it's definitely come from my dad.
That's cool. I love that. 3 pounds a day. I get, but sometimes it's hard, I bet,
Oh yeah, I mean they're missing out on some good material. That's all I can say.
right? All right, let's talk about humor in the workplace, right? So I'm very interested about the corporate, right? Because you said you've been doing, working for corporate for many, many years. So I want to know, in your opinion, how does humor, laughter, and play in general, how do they work in the corporate environment? What's the impact that they can have in a corporate environment?
I would say working with immediate teams, it's a way to connect with people at a different level on a more personal level. Um, I am fortunate that so many of the people that I worked with, we were able to establish really good relationships at work. We weren't just coworkers, but we trusted each other. We opened up. We got to know each other, and I have always found that those type of connections build better teams, which ultimately build better product. I don't know if anybody ever watches Project Runway, but they always used to have. Are you familiar with the Project Runway TV show?
No.
It was a what do we call those things? TV that I can't think of the word of now, and I feel like a fool. But it was a competition. It was a design competition, and they always had one episode where they would match a partner. So they have two people working together, and there was always one team of two people who did not get along. And you could see at the end of the show when they revealed their designs, you knew which team that was because the product looked horrendous because they didn't work well together and there was conflict all the time. So for me, and I didn't learn it from Project Runway, but I've always had this belief that good teams that enjoy each other end up building great products. So that connection has always been very important to me. And humor is one way that we open up a little bit and let people in to get a sense of knowing each other without being so personal by any means. But to kind of break the ice, I guess, is a cheesy thing to say because we all do icebreakers. But to show a little bit of yourself and connect on a deeper level than just surface level corporate
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, to like show more of like the human side of yourself, right? Like,
exactly, exactly.
would you say there's sometimes you had in the past, when you were working in corporate, maybe some kind of resistance, or you felt like, oh, I don't know, maybe this is not the right place, or what I mean? Like, would you like, where there's some, yeah, maybe, yeah, resistance. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think humor in the workplace is important, and not that I've done stand up before, but I mean, I do a lot of presentations and public speaking, and it's even in the workplace, it's important to know your audience. So the amount of humor that I would inject, and it wasn't just to make jokes, but oftentimes I would use humor when something was tense and everybody was stressed and we sort of hit a roadblock, and I could find a little something that would be like, okay, wait, we're all human, we can figure this out. That
Mm,
worked great at the team level, but as I'm standing in front of executives, I
mm,
may shift how comfortable I am in doing that. So it's very much know your audience,
mm,
know the content of what you're talking about, and if it's even an appropriate time to interject something. But there is always the risk, and it's a really fine line, but there's a risk that you can be seen as the jokester when you actually really want to be taken seriously.
mm.
So I tend to be very open and boisterous. So I have a lot. I have learned to have a lot of self control about choosing when to interject a little bit of humor, because
Mm.
you're projecting to different people, so you sort of change your game and your persona to match
Yeah.
the audience.
That's very interesting. I like that what you said. You don't want to look like the jokester, right? Because
Right.
sometimes I think that is they maybe this I don't know, misunderstanding or misconcept about, maybe I'm a funny person, but I'm still, a very serious person when it comes to work. I'm a very professional
Exactly.
person, but I'm jolly. I like to, insert humor and have humor in many things, right? And it's
Right.
interesting. I don't know, maybe some folks that, yeah, take that as like, oh, if you're funny, then you're not serious in terms of like work wise. You know what I mean? You're
Right.
not professional, right? Interesting.
Exactly.
Hmm. Uh, did you ever like had like met in the different like scope, like executives that were like very funny or executives that were very very tight?
Again, it depended a lot, I think, on the relationships that I had built with them. So in those executives, I had some very close relationships. I had some mentors that already knew me on a personal level. I felt more comfortable, obviously, opening up and being myself more around them because those relationships had already been established. But when you're sitting in meetings and you're pitching things to the vice presidents, they don't have time to get to know you all that well. I mean, they know you, they know your work, but not on a personal level so much. So
Mm.
yeah, I think it varied, but again, it really depended on the established relationships going into those scenarios first.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah, this is interesting. Did you have like maybe what you, because you said you also do like presentation, you like do public speaking, where like maybe humor, laughter, or happiness in general, like you felt like helped you overcome a difficult situation or a challenge, or I don't know. I mean, I
Yeah,
know it's like,
I'm
it's
trying
not
to
an
think
easy
of a specific. I mean, I
way.
could say, no, I'm flawless when I present, so that's never happened to me.
Right.
That's certainly not it. Um, I think it comes with there's a sense of confidence that you get by realizing that you're human. We keep talking about this human element. So, um, I remember being young and starting in my career. I was paranoid about making mistakes and worried what people were going to think and trying to get myself established. And now I'm a little long in the tooth. I've gotten up there in the years and I've had lots of experience and have a different perspective on making mistakes. To me, making a mistake is an opportunity to try again and learn from it and do something different. And if we can laugh at ourselves and not beat ourselves up about it, it definitely changes the game. So yeah, I've stumbled on my words in conversations. I've said the wrong thing and then had to go back.
Mm.
I do remember one of my first presentations, and it was in a really, it was this very small setting, and again, fairly new to the industry. And I was talking to our sales reps, and the vice president of sales, who I had just met, was sitting in the room, and I thought, oh my God, this is terrifying. Um, and I was talking about a product that we had been discussing internally, but had not communicated to anybody yet. And the rest of the team was like, oh my gosh, that's happening. And the VP looked at me like, okay, well, you just spilled the beans. And I was like, oh, no. But but what can you do? And I made a joke and I'm like, all right, cone of silence. This doesn't leave the room, and you own it. And by taking that humor, it sort of fizzles away all of the tension that may
Yeah.
exist from those sorts of things. But yeah, I'd forgotten about that till you asked. But yeah, it was very much like, oh, I've got some egg on my face. I didn't know I was supposed to say that. So here we are. And, you got to just own it and roll with it for sure.
I love that. Yeah, only enroll it. And then I believe that humor it's a really like good resource, right? When it comes like, oh, I made a mistake. Instead
Yeah,
of like, I don't know. I mean, if you made a mistake in front of everybody, everybody like realized that there was a mistake, right?
right.
So you can't really hide it, right? So I think humor,
No.
yeah,
And when
it's a
you do hide it, it makes everybody uncomfortable because it's like, all right, how's she going to handle this? What's next? So, there's tension with them as well. So, like I said, I'm at the point in my career where I've got this confidence now. Like, yep, I did that. Sorry,
oh
we're gonna
well,
go on, and
yeah.
I've got thicker skin now in my later life, I should say.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good way to like I don't know, bounce back and just like, oh well, again, as we're saying, we all human, we all make mistakes. It happens. It's not big deal. Nobody like wasn't a huge tragedy, right? Let's maybe we can
Right,
laugh about it instead of like, oh, tense up and like I don't know, because it definitely does changes the energy of like the room, right? If we're
for sure.
like oh we like oh gosh, everybody's so nervous. Maybe just throwing a joke or like laugh about it can help everybody like just relax, right? I
Exactly, and even to the point of like opening up and making a connection with people that you work with on your team, things like that, you own up to it in a public setting. Now you've got a connection with these people because you just went through something awkward together. And now you've laughed and you've sort of connected and you've sort of joined forces. Sort of like in a relationship when you have a conflict and you spend the time and you work it out. As icky as it feels, by the end of that, hopefully, if it goes well, like you actually have a closer bond because you got through something together, right? So having that experience and letting your guard down and showing yourself to people and saying, "Oh yeah, she's just like us." Okay, and it definitely changes your connection with the audience that you're speaking to.
I love
I'm
that.
not
That's
saying I'm not saying screw up on purpose so you can make a joke about it, but there's some benefit, not benefits. There's ways to get out of it that end up being beneficial than trying to hide it and pass it off and pretend it didn't happen because we all know it happened.
yes. I love that. I love that what you said. Like, yeah, connections, right? Because you connect with somebody else because like oh people like feel like oh yes I can also make mistake. It maybe creates an environment it's safer to like make mistake because then you're like okay if I make a mistake well not big deal oh well it depends on the mistake, right?
Well, sure, yeah,
Surely, right?
yeah,
But like that we connect and also we connect maybe we might discover the fact that we might have the same sense of humor or we might joke about the same things or we have more things in common that we know, right?
exactly. Yeah, it opens up a whole different channel of conversation.
Yeah, it's really cool. I say, but this is more of as a actor or performer. I say a mistake is only a mistake when you show it is a mistake,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Because like if you're like doing a play or something, it's like oh you forgot your line or you forgot you were supposed to pick up a cup of coffee and you didn't. Well, the audience doesn't know, right? Uh,
Well, and that's one thing about public speaking. You probably know more about the subject you're talking about than anybody else in the room,
exactly.
right? So they
Yes.
don't know what you didn't say. And as far as like showing or not showing that you've made the mistake. When I was in high school, I was on a competitive color guard team with flags and rifles, and same thing. Like you don't want to in the middle of a routine while you're being judged you dropped and then you stop and you make a big scene because that's all anybody pays attention to, right? So you keep going, you do your own thing, and you pretend it never happened. And we used to joke about it like I didn't mess up. That was just my solo.
I like that.
It was just my special moment. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the reaction that we can get in our heads and get really stuck, that makes it more distracting than dealing with it and moving on for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, this is great. I love this. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like the next thing that I wanted to ask you. Do you feel like the well? Actually, I want to go back to like the fact that the human connection and such, because the world that we live in now, we have more of like with AI, and there is maybe a lack of like real human connection, but we there is a huge need, right? That we all
Yeah,
want to really connect, but we have all those tools and things that like kind of like separate us, right? It's interesting,
right.
right? So maybe humor, laughter, it's a very simple way to like bring us back, right, to that
Yeah,
level
it
of.
definitely like I don't know that AI is good with dad jokes yet.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, my experience, don't know, doesn't have a
Not so
great sense
much
of humor yet. You know,
yet.
things
I'm
might
sure it's
change.
coming.
Yes. Yeah, things might change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like that maybe in the corporate world or just in work culture in general, people might have resistance of like using humor, laughter because of that, because they feel like, oh, I don't want to look silly. I don't want to look like the jokester. So I might hide a part of myself, or like, oh, I might have fear of like really showing up for like who I really am.
I'm going to say yes. I mean, of course, but I think it varies on the type of environment you're into. If you work for a small, tiny company,
Mm,
it's different than you work for a multi-billion-dollar corporation, right? You've
yeah.
got working in a small organization, you are so dependent on every single person, and that team is knit so tightly that I think you have more flexibility in being yourself. Whereas as you enter the corporate world with layers and layers and layers of executives that are further removed from your personal life, I think it's a different environment. So yeah, and I mean there were times that I know that I sort of like held back because there were things I wanted to say, but I knew it was probably not the right time or the right audience. And I'll say, I mean, one of the things that I love about working for myself is I sort of get to say what I want, right?
I know, right?
I'm
Yes.
obviously careful with my clients, and it's different with clients because I don't know them as well as I may have known some coworkers. So I am very cautious going into a lot of these conversations with my clients as we get to know each other and test the waters before I give them like full Andrea. Not everybody's ready for full Andrea. So yeah, I think I think it's very common that we find ourselves in situations where we might be holding ourselves back, and for good reason. And like I said, you need to know your audience and time and place and all of that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Say I'm one of those, maybe I'm a CEO, a leader, a manager, or somebody, position of, in charge of a company, right? And I want to have more laughter, more humor, more joy and playfulness in my, work environment. Do you
Mm-hmm.
have any suggestions for me or things that I could do?
Please, dear God, don't bring in a comedian. That's not the right answer. So many of these executives lead by example, right?
Yes.
Let your guard down. Throw in a little something. I mean, more often than not, the managers, the executives set the tone for the company, and that includes the culture, right?
Yes.
And if you have very stoic, very serious Wall Street people, that's going to trickle down to what the expectation of behavior is, right?
Mm.
So if you are at the top and you're looking for a little more openness and flexibility and connection within your teams, leading by example is the way to go. Let your guard down a little bit, throw in a little something, because then that tells everybody, oh, this is actually okay. Like this is acceptable here.
Absolutely, great advice. I mean, yes, fantastic. I totally believe in that. I mean, if it doesn't start from the top, how can you expect that everybody else is like, can relax or feel comfortable if you are the one that like is leading the company and like so tight and so I don't know, stingy about whatever,
Yeah,
anything. Right? Yes,
exactly.
this has been wonderful. I want to thank you so much for your time. And now, if people want to know more about you and amazing things that you do, where can they find you?
They can find me online. My website is makeplusequal.com. And that's also my handle over on Instagram, make plus equal. So
I
that's where
love.
they can find me. Yeah.
That's a great name. Make plus equal. Really good
Well,
name.
the idea is that there's ooh, I gotta get better at saying that. See, humor. Um, there's an inequity in the amount of product that's available for the amount of people who are plus size. So currently 70% of the population is plus sized,
Hmm.
which means most brands are catering to 30% of the people.
Wow.
There's a huge gap. And less than 20 companies in the outdoor industry actually make plus size product.
Oh, really?
So my goal by working with these brands to help them understand the need, understand the consumer, is to help them make plus equal the rest of
Yes.
their products.
Beautiful. I love
Hence
that.
the name.
That is great. Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much again for your time.
Yeah, of course. Really great chatting with you.
Yeah, same wise. Take care.
Take care.